Alright, APers, here's the deal. It's 8:30, it's Saturday night, the internet at my house is gone, went out, sad state of affairs. So I'm at school, I'm really freaked out, and so I'm going to quickly go over Chapter 34 and 35 notes with you in class right now. Actually, not in class, on the web right now, so please make sure that you pay attention, because it's going to be quick, it's going to be fast, it's going to be awesome. Alright, shattering the two-term tradition. We're on Chapter 34 right now. What you need to know about the 1940 election is the following. Wendell Willkie was the Republican nominee. He was kind of a surprise nominee to the convention. Back then, people at the convention, it wasn't uncommon for a candidate to just kind of sprout out of nowhere. Nowadays, we kind of know who's going to be nominated by the time the Republicans and Democrats get together and they nominate people formally. Willkie didn't really fight FDR too much on New Deal stuff because the New Deal was pretty much done and over. We were getting ready to fight a war. And so what Willkie, he tried to tie himself kind of close to FDR when it came to foreign affairs, but, also said that he would do it better. His biggest complaint about FDR and why he should not be president anymore is because he was going for a third term. That was his big, oh my gosh, don't vote for FDR. FDR said it's better to be a third termer than a third rater. And so he ends up winning pretty big, 449 to 82 in the Electoral College, and he makes the promise not to send the boys to war. Doesn't keep it for very long, does he? All right, he comes to kind of regret that. Charting a new world is the next bullet point I want to talk about. You got to know that in June of 1941, Hitler breaks his ties with the USSR and attacks the Soviet Union, tries to take over Moscow. The U.S. sends about $1 billion to try to help defend Moscow, and the Nazis end up kind of getting frozen out at Moscow, and that really turns the tide of the war for the Allies because the Russians start to push the Germans back towards Germany. Also, you have to know that the Atlantic Conference took place in August of 1941, and that was with Winston Churchill and FDR. They met in Newfoundland, and they signed the Atlantic Charter. The Atlantic Charter was very similar to the 14 points proposed by Wilson. And what they did was they set up goals for after the war. And the Atlantic Charter had 3 goals. The first one was they wanted to try to make sure that no territory or government would change without the consent of the people. No territory or government would change without the consent of the people. Also, they wanted to try to push for disarmament. No more weapons. And last, they wanted to try to have a new peacekeeping organization similar to the League of Nations. United Nations. United Nations. All right? Just hint, hint. So that's what you have to know. Isolationists criticized the Atlantic Charter, but they really were clueless. They didn't know that hey, you know what? This is over. It's done with. We're not gonna be isolationists anymore. They had to accept the reality. Accept it. Okay. Next up is the U.S. destroys Hitler's U-boats and the U.S. destroyers clash. What you have to pretty much know is that by 1941, we're sending people over back and forth. They're sending stuff over to Iceland. Iceland's the drop-off point. British are picking up their supplies. They're taking it back over to Europe. We're starting to get attacked by Hitler's wolf pack of U-boats. And so by 1941, November of 1941, the U.S. Congress finally decides, you know what, this Neutrality Act of 1939, it's over, it's done with. We're going to allow our merchant ships to have some arms to kind of put their dukes up a little bit. And that's a pretty big deal. It's kind of like our first steps towards war with the Europeans. Japan's surprise attack on Pearl Harbor is the next bullet point. I told you I was going fast. I only got like 13% of battery right now. It's not a good situation. The U.S. puts an embargo on Japan after Japan refuses to get rid of or stop their invasion of China. And we were cutting off their oil supply, and so the Japanese feel like they have to hit. And they decide to attack Pearl Harbor. Of course, FDR says that December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. I don't know if that's really what he sounded like, although you can find it on YouTube. It's pretty close. I'm pretty good with my FDR impersonations. There were several ships that were sunk, including the USS Arizona, which I think some of those ships are still leaking oil to this day. I don't know. My wife was out in Pearl Harbor. She went on a trip to Hawaii without me. Yeah, it was when she was in college, so I forgave her. We weren't married at the time. And then, of course, there are 3,000 Americans that are killed or wounded. Not good. All right. By December 8th, so December 7th it happens, by December 8th, we declare war on Japan. And the biggest thing you have to know about America's transformation from bystander to belligerent, which is the last bullet point, is that Pearl Harbor galvanized America. If they would have had Twitter, they would have come out with the hashtag America at this time. And of course, America was kind of riding this teeter-totter back and forth, and finally they're going to go to war. All right? That's it for Chapter 34 Notes. Fast and Furious.